Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to a bit of a unique video here at the Book Refuge in as I don't usually make videos based on spice level. Once in a while I have done a video that is extreme spice levels, and I have even done one sweet and clean romance video along the way, but something that I realize there's a bit of a gap for me is letting you guys know some books that maybe have a little bit less steam or aren't quite erotic, as it were, right? Because recently there's been a little bit of discourse. Some of it I agree with, some of it I think I wish everyone would just be a little bit grown up about, but nonetheless, I want to have recommendations for everyone and to have something available. And so with that being said, I want to provide some lower steam, what am I calling this? Some low steam romance recommendations. Now, what do I mean by low steam? For me, these are going to be recs that fall on my personal steam scale between a 1 and a 2, nothing going above a 2.5. And I will tell you what my personal steam scale is in just a second so that you know what this means. All the romances I'm going to share still have sex in them. They just are on the 1 or 2 chili peppers for me. The way that my personal steam scale works, this is something I created midway through last year because I wanted to make it clear when I'm recommending a book because, when I do my weekly reading wrap-ups, I always share the rating and the spice rating, but I wanted it to be clear for what my personal scale was. So, my scale isn't the same as anyone else's, but you'll know that when comparing books between, that I recommend pairing them up, this is what I mean when I talk about spice. So for me, starting with if I say a book has no steam, that is, it means it's YA. There's maybe not even romance in it at all. If I say something has a steam puff rating, it means that there is tension and chemistry. Maybe there's a kiss, or there's fade to black scenes or only sex scenes that are hinted at. That would be what I would call a steam puff. Maybe this also exists, like an example of this would be in the Throne of Glass series, where things start out very much as hinted at until things get more fully fleshed out, as it were, later on. So there was some of those books that had steam puffs in it, but they were still had romantic elements. Then we get into 1 chili pepper for me. So this is, of course, using my wonderful language that I have. So for me, a 1 chili pepper is hands or mouth, but no penetration on page. So that means that maybe it starts out as a sex scene, but then fades to black, but there's still we know what's happening. Heavy petting maybe, but the deeds fade to black or aren't very detailed. There's allusion used. There's very fancy words said, or this can mean in quantity, as in there is only 1 scene and it's in the last 20% of the book and it gives you lady blue balls by the time it happens. Sorry, let me say that again. Lady blue balls by the time that it happens. And I don't mean that to be derogatory. I just mean that's a term that I say when a book draws it out too long, where I'm just bang it out already. It can still be an extremely satisfying single scene and still be a single chili pepper, okay? That is not a derogatory, and we're going to get into some of those examples because that's what this video is for. 2 chili peppers for me means the deed is done, for sure. We have no allusions to it. It happened. But it is very delayed, and there's maybe not more than 2 scenes. Maybe there's 1 scene that is detailed, but then after that, it's more fade to black afterwards. That I feel happens in some historicals where we have a wedding night that is detailed and everybody gets theirs, and then the next scenes are all just we were frolicking in the hayloft, or we started kissing and touching and then it fades to black, that kind of thing. Also, there's still some flowery language used to describe the body parts maybe. So, this one, I also have examples of there are sex scenes happening, but they're not using the more crude terms for body parts. They're calling them, her dark tight cavern or his turgid length, those kind of words that might be in historical romance, right? Also, another way that it might be too is that if it's only conventional sex positions, like we're doing only like missionary, maybe against a wall, but we're definitely not getting into like multiple positions within one scene or something. And I know that's incredibly detailed, but to me, those are the things that stick out when we're talking about the spice level of a book. Those type of variations and things that make it, you know, spicy, that's what it is for me. So all the books I'm going to be talking about today are at this 2 or less. And they're all still books that I really liked. So that's what the key is here. There are bunnies playing outside my door. That's so cute. So that's what I want to differentiate by saying this. These are all still books that I very much love, that I gave either 4 or 5 or maybe even, do I have any higher than that? Yeah, that I gave 4 or 5 stars to, even though it's very delayed or less in the Steam department. But these are all still books that I would recommend. And you'll maybe notice there's some that I do recommend all the time. So let's go ahead and dive into this list that I have for you today. So the first one I want to mention is actually a gay romance, which I think it's great that there's some lower Steam queer romance out there, and someone who does that very well. And I actually recommend pretty much every book that I've read by this author fits into this category. And that is going to be Arctic Heat by Annabeth Albert. This one is actually about one of our heroes is like a park ranger at this park in, I can't remember if it's Canada or Alaska, pardon me, it's been a little bit. And one of our heroes volunteers to be a support to the national park for the season and ends up getting paired with our grumpy ranger, and they're staying in the same cabin for a good portion of the year. And I just thought it was a really sweet romance, and definitely a grumpy sunshine. Definitely one of the heroes is like not wanting to fall for someone who's going to be leaving soon. He definitely doesn't put himself out there. And I think he also was like burned in a relationship before too. So there's that added layer as well. But Annabeth Albert writes some of the most adorable gay romances I've read in the past couple of years. So again, I highly recommend her entire backlist. I really love her 2 military romances that I've read. I have more of her on my list for sure, but there is Shore Leave and Sailor Proof. Those books also have this lower Steam level. Then I have a historical, and for this, like, I'm recommending a specific book, but I recommend this author in general. Again, everything I've read of hers fits in the 1 or 2 Chili Peppers, and that's Mary Balog. I'm working my way through the Bedouin saga right now. Slowly but surely, I'm making my way. But I've actually read many Mary Balog. I've read over 20 of her books. She has a gazillion, all right? She was a very prolific author. But this series is one that is very beloved. And this one is about Aidan Bedouin. And our heroine, where is it? Where's her name? I'm sorry, it's been a little while. Does it literally not say her name? It literally doesn't say her name. Eve. It's Eve. Okay. And Aidan, he actually goes to Ringwood Manor to honor a dying soldier's request because he is a man of honor. And he goes and meets Eve, and he realizes that she's in kind of dire straits with trying to keep everything together. And so he offers to become her husband to kind of give her that support. So all 3 of the books I've read so far in this series definitely are like pretty angsty, but they build such a beautiful relationship before anything even happens between them. And I really love that. Well, one of them is more of like there's a one-night stand that happens first. But again, the connection that they built is so beautiful that I really love where it goes. So I highly recommend Mary Balog for some very like intense and still very like intimate stories that don't have, you know, sex happening immediately right off the bat. Next, we have Firelight by Kristen Callahan. I've actually read the first 2 series in this. This is a Gaslight fantasy historical scenario, and so there is a paranormal element to this series, but this one involves a hero who has a lot of secrets and ends up in a kind of like forcing this one girl into marriage so that she can, I think it's to pay off her father's debt. I think that's this one. But again, there are some secrets about him that she wants to uncover and that he doesn't want her to uncover. So there's a battle of wills, if you will. This book was a lot of fun, and there is very low steam in this one, but it was an adventure. The audiobook was really good, and I highly recommend you give this series a go if you want to try something maybe a little bit different, right? And Kristen Callahan is a wonderful writer, so highly recommend. Then we have Baking Me Crazy by Karla Sorensen. This one is one that I do wish this one had been a little spicier because of the diversity, the disability rep that was in this one. So I wanted there to be more intimate moments exploring what our heroine had going on, because we actually have a heroine in a wheelchair. She is a basketball player. This is a like friends to lovers scenario. This was actually my first Karla Sorensen that I'd read, and it does fit into some of her other, like, her bigger universe that she has with Smarty Pants romance. But yeah, our heroine is in a wheelchair, and it is a friends to lovers one, and there was only really one sex scene in this one, but I love seeing disabled characters have, like, sex scenes and, like, show that they can have sex just like anyone else. And yeah, I just really love how patient the hero was and how caring he was and interested he was in finding a way to make it work for them and to make it good for the heroine. And it was just so beautiful how he was respectful, and I just loved it. So in this, like, I still highly recommend this book. This is just one where, like, I kind of wish there'd been a little bit more, although this is a pretty short book, so I understand why it wasn't packed full of anything, and it didn't lessen my enjoyment overall. It's just when it was over, I was like, I feel like we had the opportunity to show more intimacy between them, to just show that representation. But I still really liked it. It was beautiful. Then this one is a tiny bit of a cheat, but I mean, the premise of my mission with this video still stands. It's just that this book definitely fits into the 1 or 2 Chili Peppers, but the series as a whole, I think, rides more at the 3.5. But if you wanted to test out the series, you could do this. So I squeaked it in there, even if I was fibbing just a little bit. Okay, you know, it's my video. I can do what I want. And I'm recommending Protecting You by Claire Kingsley. This is the first book in her Bailey Brothers, and this one does start kind of like, it's the origin stories, like it literally says the series origin story. And our hero and our heroine are very young. There's Grace Miles and Asher Bailey, and this is when they were friends and they're first starting to have something between them. And then there's an incident that causes our hero to go to prison. So this one does have a cliffhanger. Again, it's a novella that starts. They definitely have still had some sexy times together, but they're very cut short. And then he has to go to prison. So yeah, this was definitely on the lower Chili Pepper side, but if you continue with the series, the Chili Peppers do ramp up a little bit. So like I said, I may have fudged it a little bit. I don't care. It's my video, but this fit in the criteria for this video. Then I've been so happy to be able to recommend these books a lot right now, because I think that we're finally into the season where these books will really work for people. And these definitely fit in solidly in the 2 Chili Pepper area for me. And if you've ever heard of this author before, she usually writes erotic romance. So I didn't know what to expect when I read this series. And this series is more romantic suspense. It has, it takes place in a small Alaskan town. It has a small town. It has a community that pulls together in crisis. And it has some of the heroes in this series are looking to belong, and some of them already do belong, but they're facing challenges and finding love. But the relationships are just so beautiful in this series. And of course, that is the Son of the Survivalist series. I just grabbed the first 2 books. I didn't grab them all out, but the whole series to me fits in my 2 chili pepper scale. Some of them may have more intimate scenes than others, but they still fit in the 2 chili pepper for like the spice level of the scenes. But There Is Not a Hero is the first one. I also highly recommend the audiobooks for this series. And this one is about Gabe and Audrey. Now, the beginning of this book starts with Audrey is actually on the run because she witnesses something. She's involved in something that she shouldn't be, and there are people trying to silence her for what she's seen. And so she goes on the run, and she ends up in Rescue, Alaska, which is this tiny town. And Gabe is taking on the job of temporary sheriff, and he's very suspicious of this woman who just shows up, who is being very like tight-lipped about where she's from, and he can tell she's telling some lies, but he can't tell if it's nefarious or if she's in danger. He's not sure. She's not sure if she can trust anyone. It's a whole thing. It's great. And Gabe, he's also not looking to stay in rescue. He's only there because he feels like he owes it to his adopted father to help out for a certain amount of time. So he doesn't want to fall for anyone because he's not planning to stay. Then the next one in this series is Lethal Balance, and this one has a hero named Kaz who finds out that he has a daughter. He finds out he has a daughter who is like 9 or 10 years old. So surprise, the baby mama died. He never knew that they had a kid because he was in special ops. And when this woman contacted the military to get in contact with him, they said that he wasn't available. And so he was never told he had a daughter until she is about to be put into foster care, and her one last chance is to go stay with her dad. So I love that. And then the heroine, her name is JJ, and she becomes a deputy to the hero, who of course decides to stay and rescue, because of course. And she came from a pretty dangerous police force before, and she is hoping for a fresh start in this small town in the middle of nowhere. So they're, like I said, these have a suspense element. They have that small town, forced proximity. I love the vibes. I love it so much. Ooh, also a series that actually has low spice that you might not expect is The Tyrant Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. And this whole Rejected Mate series so far, and by that I mean the first 2 books that have come out. The 3rd one will be coming out soon, the end of December. Have pretty low steam because they involve a lot of rejection in the beginning of the book, and then the heroes needing to grovel quite a bit before they win over their heroine and actually are able to get some sexy time happening. But yes, this one involves our Tyrant Alpha, and when his mate, who is actually a crippled wolf, and her wolf doesn't come out at all, they think she's a latent shifter. She one day finally has that happen when she realizes that the Tyrant Alpha is her mate. And he doesn't seem to want anything to do with this weak cripple of a mate. And so he's like, there's no way that nature would pair me with you. And so he shuns his mate to his own degradation. I don't know what's the right word. To his own fault, whatever. And there is an epic grovel. Casey Wells writes great grovels, y'all. They happen. So both this one and the next one, I think that one's the heir apparent's Rejected Mate. They both have pretty low steam, but like it's earned when it happens. So it's good. Good stuff. I love it. Then I want to mention the Jasper Falls series, which starts with Wake My Heart by Lydia Michaels. Yes, I would say both the McCullough Mountain and the Jasper Falls series fall in the 1 to 2 spice scale. I would say that Jasper Falls definitely has the more emotional, like heartfelt stories. I mean, I love McCullough Mountain. It's not perfect, but it's great. And this series, it's funny, I actually read book 4 first because I got an ARC for this book randomly. I read it in the winter last year. And this one is a nanny and the most eligible bachelor in town, the mayor, falling for each other, which was really cute. But this one is the first book in the series. And see, this one's pretty wintry hearts too. This one's more of novella length. But this one is about Ryan Clooney, who is a cousin to the McCulloughs. And then we have Maggie, who is a very young widow. And Maggie is an O'Malley widow. And she gets a new neighbor, and Ryan is her new neighbor because Ryan moves out of his family's home and he becomes her new neighbor, and he starts to fall for her, and she just doesn't know if she's ready to love again because she is very depressed and she's kind of just living in a haze, and she doesn't know if she's ready to have her heart awaken again. And guys, I really, really love this book. And this one has an aborted intimacy scene that was heart-wrenching because our heroine is interested in Ryan, but she doesn't know if she can let another man make love to her again. And so she kind of just wants to get it over with, the first time at least, because she likes Ryan and she wants intimacy with Ryan, but she doesn't know if she can do it. And Ryan very much says, I'm not a what's it called? When it's an in-between person, I can't remember what it's called. Shit. Anyway, I'm not a substitute. I'm not here to just pop your after your dead husband cherry. I'm falling in love with you, and that's not good enough for me, and I love that. Also, this one deals with depression, grief, and there is therapy in here. If you have read any of the McCullough Mountain books, one of them has there's a therapist. One of the heroes in there is a therapist, and he actually becomes her therapist, and I really liked that. So I highly recommend for an emotional but still like really beautiful relationships are in the Jasper Falls series. It's so good. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then there is Dane's Storm by Mia Sheridan. This is a second chance romance. It's also a like disaster survival scenario. And there is this ex-wife and husband, and the ex-husband, his name is Dane, obviously, and his grandmother is causing problems for his ex-wife. So much problems that she needs to get in touch with Dane and have him help her because this grandmother is like screwing her over and may ruin her business. And so she reaches out to him. She actually flies to go see him. And then he's like, he's a pilot. And so he says, oh my gosh, I can't believe my grandmother did this. Fuck that. Let me fly you back and I'll talk to her in person and we'll get this taken care of. Now, when they go on this flight, there is a snowstorm and they crash. And so then it becomes a survival scenario. And so because of the scenario they're in a frozen mountain, there is low steam in this, deservedly so. But this also deals with some grief surrounding the reason why they're divorced, which involves the loss of a child, which was very tough. It was very tough to deal with. But Mia Sheridan, if you've read her, she definitely uses loss to tell beautiful romance, the stuff that I've read of her. So this was beautiful. And then the last one I want to recommend on this is The Contract by Melanie Moreland. And this is in a fake marriage / arranged marriage between a boss and his secretary. And he's a jackass boss, but he needs to prove that he is like a stand-up like family man. And so he gets her to pretend to be his wife so that he can get a high position job at a different firm. And this definitely involves a really good grovel. I want to read more in this series. I know that there are some shorts that she put out that connect to this series that involve them having kids as well as like the hero and the heroine reconnecting. So I definitely want to continue. But this first one did have pretty low steam because he's like, oh, well, while we're married, we definitely could have sex. And the heroine's like, why? You've been nothing but mean to me. I'm doing this because you're paying me to. Why should we have sex? So, there's some grovel that needs to happen when he realizes what a jackass he's been to this woman for so long. So there's that. But anyway, I highly recommend this, and the Melanie Moreland I've read so far I've been very impressed with. So definitely recommend that to everybody. So yeah, so there you go. I hope you will give some of these lower esteem books a try. They're all books that I loved. Sometimes we don't need it to be an erotic thrill the whole way through, and sometimes we do. And you know, there's no shame for me. There's no shame for whatever you want to read. Whether you're looking for lower esteem or you're looking for it to be 5 chili flames all around, I'm here to get those recs to you. So make sure you're subscribed to my channel, like this video, and hit the bell if you want to be notified when I upload. I upload 3 to 4 times a week, so if you're not having those videos in your subscription box, it's because YouTube ain't showing them to you, so make sure you click that bell. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye.